How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Mardiege, here today on Wednesday, January 22nd, halfway through the week, and there's a lot of stuff to cover surrounding the NFL in regards to some playoff topics, but also some breaking news that we had today regarding the New York Jets and their future, because it was announced today that they were officially hiring Lions former defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn to be their new head coach, starting another new era in New York under the guidance of Aaron Glenn. So we're going to give our thoughts on that and go into some of the details into that move, and then we're going to go into some more coaching updates because there was some more news surrounding some coordinator positions and some future moves as well. We're going to talk some things around the playoffs as well with some open-ended questions, regarding the Bills, the Lions still, and the Baltimore Ravens and their disappointing end to their season as well. So we got a lot of things to kind of discuss in a more discussion-based episode today. So make sure to stick around to that. And before we jump into the news about Aaron Glenn, obviously, a quick reminder to you guys, if you have any questions, comments, or opinions you'd like to share on these live shows, to not hesitate to do so. Your input, insight, and just any sort of perspective you guys can give to these topics is always well received from us, and we appreciate it whenever you guys give your point of view on things that we talk about. And if you want to make it absolutely sure that your message stands out and that I read it and feature it on the show, there's an easy way to do that just by using the Super Chat feature. You can use the Super Chat feature just by clicking the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's a fantastic way to support our channel as well. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as exciting, conversational as possible. So again, get involved, click the $, and let us know what's on your mind, guys, on these live shows. So with that being the case now, we can jump into the most recent piece of news today. Aaron Glenn, one of the highly touted coaches over there in Detroit, now a former coach in Detroit, is heading and venturing off into his own avenue, becoming a head coach officially in the NFL. Now he joins Ben Johnson, who was hired by the Chicago Bears. Their defensive line coach, who we're going to get into, Terrell Williams, also is moving on, and now Aaron Glenn joins that group. So Aaron Glenn had a lot of success as the Lions defensive coordinator, and it's been a couple days where the news around Aaron Glenn, and what I was actually going to talk about today, was how the Jets and Aaron Glenn had a meeting, I believe yesterday, if I am correct on that. They had a meeting yesterday, and the overall consensus of everything from that meeting was how the Jets really wanted to get things ironed out and figured out on that day. And according to some of the reports coming out, that the Jets wanted to make sure that Aaron Glenn didn't leave that building without a deal signed, basically, to become the new head coach, right? They felt that confident, and they felt like they could get it done yesterday. And not only that, but it also connected to their general manager position, right? Obviously, where they are still looking for someone to fill that role after Joe Douglas, was dismissed, and they were potentially interviewing or potentially going to hire Lance Newmark. Lance Newmark was someone that we had already talked about on this show, but in relation to the Raiders general manager position, which they already filled out, but we thought that Lance Newmark, who currently is the assistant general manager with the Commanders, we thought that would be a great pairing over in Las Vegas, because we heard that the Raiders were also targeting Ben Johnson. But since Ben Johnson's now in Chicago and Ryan Poles isn't going anywhere, now Lance Newmark is still in connection to a Lions head coach, but this time it's going to be Aaron Glenn, it looks like. And while the Jets officially hired Aaron Glenn as their new head coach, there's no news yet on any sort of general manager news. But that's what the plan was yesterday. And when it was reported that both parties kind of went their separate ways, I kind of felt like, all right, the plan didn't really work as you would have thought, as you had it, planned out in your head, but Um, it didn't necessarily mean that it was going to be, just chalked or anything like that, right? There was still hope, there was still some positive feelings, but there was that little bit of hesitation, at least from me, where I'm thinking, all right, well, if they didn't get it done, then, what is the reason for that? And I thought that because Aaron Glenn reportedly had some other interviews set up for head coaching positions, like with the Saints, another one of his former teams, I thought that was where, this could be headed with the Saints, being interested in Aaron Glenn and wanting him probably to be their new head coach. I thought that he at least was going to give them, the benefit of meeting with them a second time. But before any of that was really developed, he was announced officially as the Jets' new head coach. And I mentioned his relationship in New Orleans. With that being said, Aaron Glenn also has connections to the New York Jets. He played there as well for some time during his playing career, and he was actually a first-round pick by the Jets back in 1994, part of his 15-year career, and now he's back to coaching a team that ended up drafting him. So he was a Pro Bowler there as well, and now he's got the huge responsibility, right, of trying to right the ship after numerous attempts of it kind of looking like it was about to turn the corner, not really finding a quarterback, always struggling with that, thinking you've built up enough support around the rest of the team to kind of just bring in a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, and they thought that it was all going to work out, but obviously the year went how it did, and they really struck out on a lot of these opportunities, and a lot of that, came at the feet of Robert Saleh. He was fired halfway through the season, and that was really the beginning of the end for everything. So getting this new fresh start here with Aaron Glenn and this new opportunity, not just for him, but for the Jets, I am really a big fan of. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were the two guys that I was really excited to see where they would end up because of the success that they had in Detroit and how much of a powerhouse that team was. And of course, they got great players, but I think with their guidance, I think they were really able to maximize their talents there. And I think that goes underappreciated a good amount of times, right? When you see a very talented team, highly stacked up team, like the Eagles, for example, right? They had almost all those same players, but with different coordinators. And then you bring in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, and now they look like a completely new team. Not to bash the other guys, but it just does make a difference, and it just shows a difference in the type of coordinators, the type of leadership, and the type of game plan you come in. So I was a fan of Ben Johnson getting his job, and Aaron Glenn, same thing. I thought he did a great job maximizing that defense, developing guys in his system, in his scheme, like Aiden Hutchinson, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph is another one, Terrion Arnold that looks to be a very good player, Jack Campbell, their middle linebacker. They've built this team very well, and I'm sure he's had a very big input into that. And now moving over to New York, you already got a lot of solid pieces there with Quinnen Williams, Quincy Williams, Sauce Gardner, guys like that. Will McDonald, kind of broke out this year. They got some good players in this organization, but obviously the biggest question mark, kind of cloud hanging over this organization is the quarterback position. What are they going to do with Aaron Rodgers? How do they deal with Devontae Adams? Garrett Wilson, there was some reports of him being unsettled potentially. So how do you kind of put out the fire a little bit is going to be one of his first jobs as a head coach. But I just really like him also as a leader of men. Obviously, I don't know him or anything like that, but I think one of the things he said that really stuck with me was that, while he was a defensive guy, he said they're getting, whichever team hired him was going to get a head coach, right? He knew that. It seems like he's well aware of the responsibility of that, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do with this team. Anthony here, does this push Aaron into retirement? Because I don't think he wants to play with a new head coach. I mean, I don't think it does. I think that's just really going to be up to Aaron, and I don't know. Of course, the relationship was icy, obviously, with the organization, and I think really mostly with Woody Johnson and all the stuff that came out around that. But I think Aaron Glenn is capable of convincing him, if, of course, Aaron Glenn wants him, right? If Aaron Glenn, I think, doesn't want him to be their quarterback because maybe he wasn't satisfied with Rodgers' play, or he just feels like they need to go in a different direction. I think that could be something that could also be a possibility. Yeah, I mean, rookie head coach is obviously not the most ideal pairing timeline wise with Aaron because of the difference there, right? But I mean, I don't know. I think they'll hash things out. And if I were to guess, I think Aaron would come back for one more year. And it's not like he has an array of, choices, right? I think it's really going to be the Jets or some other non-contending teams. So I think the Jets really give him the best opportunity as well. Eric here, addressing the elephant in the room. Will this really change anything about the Jets? Rodgers controls the plays. He hates motion on the line of scrimmage. Glenn has to prove himself. Yeah, I mean, that'll be also an interesting dynamic because, you're a rookie head coach coming in trying to prove yourself and everything, and Aaron holds that seniority a little bit, right? And I think that's going to be something that they really got to hash out, and I would love to see Aaron Glenn really take control over that. And who his offensive coordinator is going to be huge, and it also goes hand in hand with Aaron, right? Because if he wants Aaron to be his quarterback, then you would like to think he'd have some input into that offensive coordinator, and we'll see how those discussions go, if that's something that both Aarons can agree on, right? I've heard some things about Todd Haley being in contention for their coordinator position, which, I mean, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Last time it was with the Steelers, I believe. So, I don't know. I mean, that's only just one of the many things. And, bringing up Aaron Rodgers is going to be the biggest thing because, obviously, if they don't bring him back, then you got to look at a new quarterback coming in. And really the market isn't one that I'm too thrilled upon, and the Jets aren't really in a spot to really draft one either. So, I mean, if you don't really got one of the top-tier quarterbacks, that really skews your expectations for this team, right? But like I mentioned before, they got a lot of good players, and as long as they could put out those fires a little bit, because right now everything just seemed like a big mess, I think a smoother start and a more relaxed start, off of the season that they just had, I think will tell us a lot. And I'm interested to see what he says, as his first remarks as a head coach. I think that is also kind of giving us a blueprint of what's to come over the next couple of months. So, big news, the Jets finally get a head coach, joining the Patriots, joining the Bears. Now, we'll see what the Jags, the Saints, and the Raiders do now that they are without the two top, or actually the three top choices of the head coaching market. So we'll keep tabs on that. But as we move along, we're not going to move off of coaching too much just because we are going to give some quick updates on the coordinators around the NFL. There was some breaking news around some coordinators being hired in different places and some other rumors around head coaches that I wanted to touch on. So we're not going to go too far off of this topic. Make sure to join us back here after this break.